जय श्री माता जी. Srimad Devi Bhagavat. If you want to know who Adi Shakti is, read Devi Bhagavat, said by Her Holiness Srimataji Nirmala Devi. Sankalpam. Mama Atmanah Sahajayogi Kutumbanam Atmonnati Prityartham Moksha Prapti Prityartham Sakshat Shri Adi Shakti Mataji Shri Nirmala Devyai Pujanam Karishe. The Holy Recital of Srimad Devi Bhagavat. Chapter 5, Episode 1-3. Story of Rambh, Karambh, birth of Mahishasura and Raktabija. Mahishasura provokes Indra. Raja Janmejay said, Prabhu, you have explained the influence and power of Mahamaya Bhagavati Yogeshwari. Now, please tell us accounts of her deeds. I am eager and impatient to hear stories of her valor. Vyasji says, Rajan, listen. I am going to tell you all her stories in great detail. Anyone who does not tell the glories of Bhagavati to a person who is peaceful and faithful, that person is extremely foolish and stupid. A long time ago, there was a king called Mahishasura. During his reign, there was a fierce battle between the Devas and the Danavas. Mahishasura performed a difficult tapasya. When the gods saw this, they were perplexed. For 10,000 years, he put his favorite deity in his heart and meditated upon him. Then the venerable father of the world, Lokpitama Brahmaji, was pleased. He came there, seated on a swan, and said, Dharmatman, ask for a boon. I have come here to fulfill your desire. Mahishasura said, O foremost among gods, most auspicious Brahmaji, I desire immortality. Grant me that I never have the fear of death. Brahmaji said, That which is born must die, and that which dies must be born again. That is an irreversible law and is eternally applicable. The cycle of birth, death, and rebirth goes on continuously and relentlessly. O King of Daityas, at the appointed time, all things must die. Even majestic mountains and vast oceans come to an end. Therefore, O King, excepting the matter of death, you may ask for anything else. Mahishasura said, Pitama, Devatas, Danavas, and humans. From these categories, let no man be the cause of my death. Any woman may kill me. Therefore, Brahmaji ordained that I meet my death only at the hands of a woman. She who is herself weak can never succeed in killing me. Brahmaji said, Daityendra, so shall it be. Whenever your death is near, may it be at the hands of women. O fortunate Mahishasura, you will never be killed by a male. Vyasji says, After granting the boon, Sri Brahmaji returned to his abode. The Daitya Mahishasura also went back home very happy with his boon. Raja Janmejay asked, Whose son was Mahishasura? How did he take birth? Being such a good soul, how did he get the form of a buffalo? Vyasji says, O king, Danu had two sons, Rambh and Karambh. They were both very famous and renowned among Danavas. Both were childless. They began tapasya for begetting sons. They stood in the waters of the Panchanad, 5 rivers of Punjab, for many years. Then Karam submerged himself and performed a most difficult tapasya. Rambh chose an excellent milk-sap banyan tree and sat with Panchagni, 5 fires around him, and went into deep tapasya. Seeing the tapasya of both the brothers, Indra became agitated. He went to Panchnath himself. He assumed the form of a crocodile, entered the water, and caught in his jaws the leg of Karam. Karam drowned to death. When Ram heard of his brother's death, his anger was uncontrollable. He wanted to cut off his head and offer it to the Panchagni. With this intention, he caught his own locks of hair in one hand and picked up a sword in the other. Just then, Agni Devata appeared and stopped him. He said, Rambh, you are really very foolish. How could you think such an ignoble and inferior death as suicide? May you prosper and be auspicious. Ask me for any boon that your heart desires. Do not renounce your body. What will you gain by killing yourself? Vyasji says, the voice of Agni Devata was very soothing. Rambh dropped his plate and said, O Deva, if you are pleased, then give me a boon which is very dear to my heart. I want a son who will be victorious over Triloki, the three worlds. I want a son who will destroy the armies of all enemies. He should be invincible, and no Deva, Danava, or human should defeat him. He should be able to assume any form he desires. He should have boundless energy. Everyone should bow before his feet. Agni Devata said, Very well, your wishes will be fulfilled. That is the kind of son you will have. Now, abandon your ideas of suicide. O fortunate Rambh, the first woman that you make your wife will bear you this son. Vyasji says, the assurance given by Agni Devata was most delightful. Rambh prostrated at his feet and started his journey home. Rambh was rich and prosperous and had a flourishing abode. Even demigods lived there. But he was a Rakshasa and beastliness was inbuilt. When he saw a female buffalo, he became full of lust and desire. The she-buffalo was young and also intoxicated with desire. Fate is very mighty and powerful. Rambh impregnated the she-buffalo. One day, a buffalo bull followed this buffalo and Rambh stood in front of him ready to fight. The bull buffalo was in season and therefore blindly ferocious. He attacked Rambh with his fearful horns. The horns were sharp and the bull repeatedly gored Rambh in the stomach and chest. He was ripped to pieces and fell to the ground, dead. When the female buffalo saw that her lord was dead, she ran away full of fear. She went to the Yakshas for protection. The bull ran behind her. The Yakshas saw that she was trembling with fear. Tears were falling from her eyes and her heart was rising and falling. They also saw the raging buffalo bull advancing. They decided to protect the buffalo and challenge the bull. A great fight followed. The Yakshas rained arrows on him. One struck him in the heart and he fell to the earth lifeless. The Yakshas respected Rambh. They arranged for his funeral and put his body on the pyre. When she saw her husband's body, the she-buffalo decided to perform sati and get cremated with her husband. The Yakshas tried to prevent her, but she had made up her mind. She climbed on the pyre and held her beloved close to her heart. From the burning pyre emerged Mahabali Mahishasura. Rambh himself took a new body and also emerged from the pyre as Raktabija. So, Mahishasura and Raktabija were both produced from Rambh. After that, all the important Danavas came and installed Mahishasura as their king. O king, Mahishasura was indestructible, and no Deva, Danava, or man could kill him. So, This is the story of the birth of Mahishasura and the reason for his invincibility. Vyasji says, in this way, the mighty Mahishasura began to rule over the three worlds. Because of the boon, he became extremely arrogant and aggressive. Every living being was under his rule. He conquered every bit of land up to the oceans and brought it under his control. He was the absolute monarch of the whole world. There were no enemies to challenge him. His army chief was Chikshur. He was very powerful and also proud and arrogant. His treasurer was Tamra. He had 10,000 soldiers under his command. Asiloma, Udark, Bidal, Bashkal, Trinetra, and Kalabandak were very wealthy kings. They also had large armies. From ancient times, they ruled the land up to the oceans. Now, they accepted the overlordship of Mahishasura and paid tax. Those self respecting kings who were not in favor of surrendering to Mahishasura went to battle and fell fighting. O king, even the Brahmins became submissive to Mahishasura. In all yagyas, he was given a share of the sacrifice. Mahishasura began to enjoy the status of unchallenged, single ruler of the whole world. The boon made him conceited and he decided to conquer heaven. He sent a messenger to Indra to tell him, Devraj Indra, leave heaven immediately and go and live wherever you please. If you wish to stay on in the heaven, you must become his servant. O husband of Shachi, if you take refuge under Mahishasura, he will surely protect you. It is advisable for you to acknowledge his rulership. If this is not acceptable, then immediately pick up your thunderbolt and prepare for war. But remember that you have been defeated before. I know the extent of your valor and strength. Either fight or go immediately to a place of your choice. The messenger went to Indra and said exactly what he was instructed to say. Vyasji says, hearing this message, Indra burst into flames of anger. Then he controlled himself and smiled. He said to the messenger, O foolish one, take this message back to Mahishasura. Do you think I do not know you? You are so overcome with ambition and arrogance that you are uttering these meaningless words. You are stricken with the disease of greed, and I will cure you, and then it will be cut from the roots. Go and tell your master what I have said. Righteous men do not attack messengers, so you can leave safely. But tell him this, son of a buffalo, if you are so keen to fight, come into my presence. O enemy of the horse, I know your strength. Your form and appearance is heavy, dumb, and stupid. You exist by eating grass. I will make a bow out of your horns. There is some strength in your horns, and that has made you haughty. I will break both your horns and destroy your strength. You are only adept at striking with your horns. You cannot attack a fortress with weapons. Vyasji says, the messenger left Indra's palace and returned to Mahishasura. After paying obeisance, he delivered the message from Indra. He said, O king, Devraj is independent and powerful. He has a huge army of devas. He considers himself very strong. You do not count for anything with him. I do not know how to change what he said before I present it to you. It is the duty of a messenger to give the message in both truthful and agreeable form. If I tell you only that which is agreeable, then it will be a lie and will put an obstacle in your achieving your desires. A faithful messenger cannot let that happen. On the other hand, an enemy will always use objectionable and harsh language, but a messenger cannot articulate those horrible words before his master. O king, Indra has used such obnoxious and repugnant language that my tongue cannot repeat it. Mahishasura could guess the truth behind in the messenger's words. His whole body got heated up with anger. His eyes became red. He called all his ministers and said, "That Devraj wants to fight. Use all your strength and weapons and defeat him. No one should challenge my sovereignty. Even if there are 1 crore Indras, it means nothing to me. Then what have I to fear from this Indra? Today I will not leave him alive. It is only among the mild and placid that he is considered brave. The feeble and exhausted tapasvis think him to be strong and powerful. He is assisted by apsaras. He uses their charms to put obstacles or break the tapasya of sages and munis. It has become his nature to strike whenever he gets an opportunity. He deceives and is a traitor. This is the same Indra who used guile to kill Namuchi. When the battle started, he became afraid and made a treaty of alliance with Namuchi. Then he tricked him and killed him. Sri Vishnu is a great strategist. At will, he takes different forms. He is all powerful and has complete knowledge of creating illusion and confusion. Danavas, even though he incarnated as a boar and killed Hiranyaksh, and later he incarnated as Narasimha and killed Hiranyakashipu, I cannot acknowledge his overlordship. I do not believe that there is anyone among the Devas who can stand up to me. What can Vishnu or Indra do to me? If I stand on the battlefield, even Shankar will not be able to defeat me. I will defeat Indra and snatch away heaven from him. Varun, Yamraj, Kuber, Agni, Chandrama, and Surya will all be vanquished by me. Now all of us, Danavas, will be entitled to sacrificial offerings and we can have the right to drink Somras. I will crush the Deva community and live happily with all my Danavas. I have received a boon and therefore I fear no one. If I am invincible against all males, what harm can poor females do to me? O swift and fleet footed messengers, go to Patal, go to the mountains, and go to all places and invite all the Danavas to come and join my army. I alone am sufficient to vanquish the Devas, but now it is a matter of dignity and prestige that I should be accompanied by huge armies. With my horns and hoofs, I can kill all the Devas. Under protection of the boon, I do not have even an iota of fear of the gods. I am indestructible and invincible against gods, demons, and humans. So be prepared for victory over the Devas. Then I will indulge in recreation and amusement in Nandanvan, paradise. You will also have the opportunity of inhaling the fragrance of the Parijat flowers. Celestial damsels will entertain you. We will drink the sweet milk of the cow Kamadhenu. You will experience the joy of drinking Amrut. The divine musicians, the Gandharvas, will sing and dance for your entertainment. The Apsaras, Urvashi, Menaka, Rambha, Gritachi, Tilottama, Pramdvara, Mahasena, Misrakeshi, Madodkata, and others are accomplished singers and dancers. They will offer you delicate food and drinks and pamper your attention. Therefore, if you all agree to fight the Devas, let us go today. But before leaving, let us perform the necessary ceremonies for success and auspiciousness. Let us invite our Guru Shukracharya ji to perform the yajna for our safety and success. Vyas ji says, O king, Mahishasura's mind was always occupied with sinful and wicked plans. After giving instructions, he went into his palace with an evil smile on his face. Chapter 5, Episode 4 to 5. Before meeting Mahishasura, Indra consults the Devas and Guru Brihaspati ji. Indra's visit to the gods Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar. Battle between Indra, the Devas, and Mahishasura, Bidal, Tamra. Vyasji says, after the demon messenger left, Indra called Yamraj, Pavandev, Kuber, Varun, and other devas and said, a very famous and powerful demon called Mahishasura is the king of the Daityas. His father was called Rambh. Because of a boon, he has become very aggressive and arrogant. He is also well versed in various arts of illusion. His messenger had come to convey his intentions of attacking us and annexing Devalok. He said, Indra, leave heaven and go wherever you wish, or accept servility to the king of Danavas, Mahishasura. He will look after all your requirements. He is very kind to those who are engaged in serving him. If this is not acceptable to you, then you must prepare for war. Because as soon as I tell him of your decision, he will lead an assault against you. O Devas, this Mahishasura is an extremely mean and worthless demon. Strong men should never underestimate the weak opponent, especially those who boast of their strength and valor. We should be vigilant and alert. Of course, everything is under the control of destiny. No one can change even a little bit of it. But it is not advisable to make any compromise with him because he is sly and dishonest. Nor can we approach him on friendly terms because he is evil. All of you are wise. Give this matter your serious consideration. We also cannot make a surprise attack because we know nothing about his strength. We should first send a spy who is stealthy and fleet footed. He should also have knowledge of war tactics so that he can assess the enemy's strength and discover his plans. He should be without attachments, have a strong loyalty so that he does not succumb to enticements, and should be honest and faithful. After we get all the information regarding strength of the army and battle plans, only then should we launch our attack. The spy should find out the exact number of warriors and equipment that they have. Then we can decide whether to attack immediately or increase our own military first. Any action taken in haste can only lead to disappointment, pain, and suffering. The wise man weighs the situation and acts only if success is guaranteed. To fight the Danavas immediately would be like treating an unknown disease with strong medicine. It could have adverse results. Vyasji says, accordingly, Indra sent a very efficient spy who went and came back in a very short time. He brought back information that astonished Indra. He immediately sent the Devas to escort their Guru Brihaspati to his palace. After he accepted the seat of honor, Indra spoke to him. O son of Angira, O learned one in the science of mantras, please advise us as to what action we should take. Today, the king of demons, Mahishasura, is coming with his army of immeasurable might to take away heaven away from us. You are well versed in the science of mantras. Please find a way to weaken and destabilize his army and make his attack ineffective. Just as they have their Guru Shukracharya to help them, you are our only hope to put some confidence and balance into us. Vyasji says, after hearing Indra, Guru Brihaspati went into a meditative state. Then he said to Indra, Devraj, be calm. It is important for you to maintain balance and fortitude. When faced with a crisis, one should not lose courage. O king, success and failure, victory and defeat are all governed by fate. A wise man is always anchored in his spirit and never allows anything to disturb his balance. Whatever has to happen will definitely happen. One should always recognize and accept this law of destiny. Of course, a man should perform his job or vocation faithfully. Even the rishis and munis who have renounced the world are constantly engaged in the pursuit of moksha. So, we should go about our duties within the codes of conduct and righteous behavior, and we should surrender the results because that is under the control of destiny. Sometimes things work out without any exertion, but that should not make a person inert or paralyzed. On the other hand, if he tries his best and still does not succeed, it is not his fault. What is destined only will happen. No one can thwart fate. O King of Devas, armies, ministers, mantras, weapons, and chariots, these are only instruments. There is no guarantee that their use will give success. Fate decides whether we merit success or failure. Sometimes it appears as if a contemptible man gets all the success and happiness, whereas an honest, hard-working man gets only sorrow and hardship. O Devraj, every living creature is governed by destiny. So, one should never get dejected or depressed when things do not happen the way we want. But we should never shirk our duty. In times of sorrow, we should remember that there are greater sorrows than ours in this world, and in times of happiness, we should remember that there is an ultimate happiness. Happiness and sorrow are like enemies. Do not involve your Atma into it. When faced with great happiness or sorrow, we must never lose our balance. Then, sorrows can never overpower us or push us down into depression. Keeping balance, if you just witness the situation, it not only becomes bearable, but you can also conquer it. For a person who can maintain his equilibrium in every situation, what is happiness and what is sorrow? One must always say, I am Nirgun and therefore indestructible. I am beyond the 24 attributes. Then what affinity do I have to happiness and sorrow? Devraj, understand this well and develop detachment. This is the solution to all your problems. Attachment is the cause of all sorrows, and detachment gives the greatest freedom and happiness. O husband of Shachi, if one wishes to be happy, one has to be satisfied. There is no other way. Hunger and thirst have affinity to life, sorrow and attachment to the mind, and old age and death to the body. I am the embodiment of auspiciousness. I am devoid of these six afflictions. Why should I get involved into them? I am not this body. I am beyond the cycle of formation and deterioration. O Lord Indra, this is the only solution for neutralizing the pangs of sorrow. In the matter of destiny, you must use your wisdom. If there is no karma, then there will not be fruits of destiny. This is very clear. O Devraj, happiness and sorrow are indicative of fruits of good or bad deeds of the past. A wise man sees positivity in every negativity. He experiences joy in every situation. Therefore, go ahead and have discussions with your ministers and advisors and decide on a course of action. Do not put much attention on the results. What is destined will happen. There is no doubt in this. Vyasji says, hearing the advice of Devaguru Brihaspati, Lord Indra said, I am going to make preparations for war against Mahishasura. Inactivity will not win a kingdom, or fame, or glory. It is only the lazy and lethargic who take recourse to inactivity. For a sannyasi, knowledge is his decoration, and for a Brahmin, satisfaction. But for those who want glory and supremacy, the act of going to war against enemies is their decoration. O Muni, it was by my action that Vritrasur and Namuchi were killed. In the same way, I am going to kill Mahishasura. I will draw my strength from you, O Guru Brihaspati, and from my most trusted weapon, the Vajra, that is thunderbolt. Bhagwan Vishnu and consort of Uma, Sri Shankar, will certainly help me. O Guru, it is your nature to bless us and pray for us. I am leaving with my army to fight against Mahishasura. I fervently request you to chant the auspicious Rakshogna mantra for our protection against evil forces. Vyasji says, when Lord Indra said this, Guru Brihaspati laughed and said to Indra, Brihaspati said, Devraj, I can neither advise you to go to war, nor can I dissuade you, because no one can predict the outcome. Victory or defeat cannot be known beforehand. Whatever the result, you must not take the blame for it. Happiness and sorrow are predestined and inevitable. Nevertheless, a wise man remains diligent at all times. Success and failure are under the control of fate. Vyasji says, after hearing these words of wisdom from Guru Brihaspati, Indra went to Brahmaji. After offering pranam, Indra said, Pitama, you are the supreme lord of all the devas. At this moment, a very wicked demon, Mahishasura, is advancing towards heaven with a mighty army. All the other demons have joined him. They are all very powerful and ambitious and are well versed in the art of war. O most wise and learned one, I am overcome with fear and have come to you for refuge. Nothing is hidden from you. Please help me. Brahmaji said, let us all go to Kailash. We will make Bhagwan Shankar and the most powerful Sri Vishnu the chief planners and take their advice. We will also consult all the gods and taking into account the time and place, we will decide on a course of action. Hasty decisions are foolish and can cause failure. Vyasji says, Devraj obeyed Brahmaji and making him the leader, all the devas went to Kailash. They began to sing stutis, and when Bhagwan Maheshwar was pleased, they made him their chief and all left for Vishnulok. In Vaikunth, they sang stutis and pleased the god of gods, Bhagwan Sri Hari. Upon their telling him their story, he told them, because of a boon that he has received, Mahishasura has become arrogant and conceited, and his unbounded ambitions have become a cause for concern. He also said, all the gods should launch an invincible attack on Mahishasura and kill him. Vyasji says, after deciding the strategy, all the gods led by Sri Brahma, Sri Vishnu, and Sri Shankar mounted their respective Vahanas and headed for the battlefield. Sri Brahma sat on a swan, Bhagwan Vishnu on Garuda, Sri Shankar sat on a bull, and Indra mounted his elephant Airavat. Swami Kartikeya sat on a peacock and Yamraj on a buffalo. They had hardly started moving when they were confronted by Mahishasura's army intoxicated with pride and arrogance. The battle started right away and both sides fought fiercely with all kinds of weapons. The chief of the demon army, Mahabali Chiksur, shot 5 deadly arrows at Indra. Indra cut all of them in midair. He also used his crescent-headed arrow and injured Chiksur in the chest. Chiksur fell unconscious on his elephant. Then Indra attacked the elephant and cut its trunk. It fell down dead. Seeing the fall of Chiksur, the demon army fell into confusion and ran helter-skelter. Mahishasura became furious. He called his strongest warrior, Vidal, and said, O brave and strong one, Indra has become proud of his strength. You go and kill him. Also kill Varun and the other devas and come back to me. Vyasji says, Vidal immediately mounted an elephant and went to fight with Indra. When Indra saw him coming, he sent a shower of arrows like venomous snakes on Vidal. But Vidal was quick and destroyed all the arrows before they could reach him. They kept shooting at each other and destroying each other's arrows. Then Indra hit the elephant on the trunk with his mace. The trunk got severed from the body, and the elephant whirled around and began to trample the demon soldiers. The army was again in disarray. Vidal jumped off the elephant and climbed into a chariot and blocked the Devas' advance. Once again, Indra and Vidal engaged in fierce fighting. Indra found that his anger was overpowering his senses and making him unsteady and inaccurate. He made Jayant his leader, and that powerful Deva managed to wound Vidal. He fell in his chariot, and his Sarathi, driver, quickly took the chariot out of the battlefield. Seeing this, the Devas began to shout victory and beat the drums. This enraged Mahishasura. He sent the vicious demon Tamra to fight the Devas. Tamra was an excellent shooter and he sent so many arrows that it looked as if the clouds were sending torrents into the ocean. Varun picked up his noose and Yama took his pole and began to fight with Tamra. The other Devas also used their divine weapons and very soon Tamra also fell. The demons began to quake with fear. Chapter 5, Episodes 6 to 7. Battle between Sri Vishnu, Sri Shankar, and Mahishasura. Return of Sri Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar to their abodes. Defeat of the Devas. Vyasji says, after Tamra fell, Mahishasura himself picked up his mace and went to face the Devas. He shouted, Devas, today I am going to pulverize all of you with my mace. You have always been weak. You only know how to consume offerings at sacrifices. He rushed at Indra and hit him on the shoulder with his mace. Indra was alert and broke the mace. Mahishasura took a gleaming sword in his hand and rushed towards Indra. A terrible battle ensued, with each using a large battery of weapons. At that time, Shambarasura made use of an illusion which had the power to destroy the whole world and which had befooled Munis in the past. Mahishasura immediately used the same Maya and manifested as 1 crore Mahishasuras, all of them identical to each other. They were all heavily armed and were attacking the Devas. Seeing this, Indra was filled with fear and confusion. Even Varun, Kuber, Yamraj, Agni, Surya, and Chandrama began to panic. They began to run away. They went far away and remembered the gods Brahma, Vishnu, and Shankar, who immediately appeared before them. They were seated on their Vahanas, Swan, Garuda, and the bull Nandi. They all carried their special weapons. Seeing the illusion created by the demons, Sri Vishnu sent his Sudarshan Chakra. It completely dissolved the illusion. All the three controlling deities of creation, preservation, and destruction were present. Seeing them, Mahishasura picked up a spear and advanced towards them. His chief, Chiksur, and other Danavas, Ugrasya, Ugravirya, Asiloma, Trinetra, Vashkal, and Andhak accompanied him. They all wore armor and carried huge bows. They surrounded the Devas just like jackals around a tender calf. Then all the demons, blind with intoxication, began to shoot arrows at the Devas. The Devas also replied with showers of arrows. Then the Danavas began to fight with Sri Brahma, Sri Vishnu, and Sri Shankar. After some time, the three gods returned to their abodes. Indra stood firm on the battlefield with his Vajra, and Varun held his sword. Yamraj was also there with the pole, that is Dand. Kuber and Agni joined them with swords in hand. The chief of the planets, Chandrama and Surya Bhagwan, came together to support Indra. They had all made a firm resolve to destroy Mahishasura. The Danava army approached and rained angry arrows at them like striking snakes. In the middle was Mahishasura in his original form of a ferocious buffalo. A great war with shouting and shooting broke out between the Devas and the Danavas. The sound of clashing weapons was louder than thunder. Mahabali Mahishasura was fully intoxicated with pride and arrogance. He began tossing the hilltops with his enormous horns. The Devas received injuries from the falling rocks. Mahishasura had the most amazing strength. With his hooves and swishing tail, he killed many Devas. Seeing this, all the Gandharvas and Devas were filled with fear. Even Indra faltered. He turned and ran from the battlefield. Seeing this, Mahishasura declared victory and went back to his palace. Mahishasura took possession of Indra's elephant Airavat, the wish-fulfilling cow Kamadhenu, and Uchchaishrava, the white horse of the sun that came out during the churning of the ocean. Then he decided to take his army and acquire heaven. All the Devas had gone into hiding. The royal courts of assembly were deserted. As soon as Mahishasura reached there, he declared himself ruler of heaven and ascended Indra's throne. All the Danavas occupied the seats of the Devas. In this way, after fighting a war for over 100 years, the ambitious and conceited Mahishasura gained supremacy of heaven. The Devas wandered in the mountains and lived in caves and crevices. After endless sufferings, the Devas could not bear any more and decided to go to the god with four faces, Sri Brahma, as he is responsible for the whole creation. He is of Rajasic temperament. At that moment, he was seated on a lotus and constituting the Vedas. Marich and other prominent munis who had manifested out of Sri Brahma's body and who were conversant with the Vedas and of a calm and tranquil disposition were also present. Saints, composers, Gandharvas, Kinnars, Nagas, and other demigods were engrossed in singing stutis to the Father of creation. The Devas came into the divine presence and said, O remover of all trials and tribulations, O you who are seated in the lotus, Sri Brahmaji, at this moment, after being defeated by Mahishasura, all the Devas are wandering homeless in the mountains. They are facing great hardships and are living in caves. Even after seeing our sad plight, you are not moved by compassion. This is very strange and perplexing. Even after committing 100 sins, if a child repents and returns to his unselfish father, will he disown the child and leave it to suffer? Never. But today, when we have been defeated by the Daityas and come to you for refuge, you are indifferent and ignoring our state. Mahishasura is enjoying rulership over heaven and earth. In all the yagyas being performed by Brahmins, he is getting the maximum share. Of all the heavenly trees, the foremost Parijat flowers are used for decorating him. Not only this, but he now owns the most treasured gem from the ocean, Kamadhenu. O God, how much can we tell you? You are omniscient. You know all his transgressions. We bow our heads at your lotus feet. Please protect us. Please look after our welfare. All the gods are your responsibility. You are the first progenitor and you are the embodiment of auspiciousness and prosperity. You are the endless source of light. It is your nature to give peace to all. The Devas are suffering agony and torment akin to a burning, blazing forest. If you will not give us safe refuge, then to whom shall we turn for help? Vyasji says, the Devas prayed to Sri Brahma with bowed heads and folded hands. Their faces were filled with sadness. Seeing their state, Sri Brahmaji spoke in soothing tones. Brahmaji said, O Devas, what can I do? Mahishasura is haughty and conceited because of a boon. Only a woman can be the cause of his death. He cannot be killed by the male of any species. In the circumstances, there is nothing I can do. We should all go to the holy Mount Kailash and place our problems at the feet of the specialist god Bhagwan Sri Shankar. We will make him our leader and go to Vaikunth, the abode of Bhagwan Vishnu. There, we will ask his advice regarding the plight of the Devas. Brahmaji left on his swan, followed by the Devas. Sri Shankar was already aware of their coming and he came out of his palace to receive Sri Brahmaji. The two great gods met and exchanged salutations and blessings. All the Devas prostrated at Sri Shankar's feet. He offered all the Devas seats, and after they sat, he went and took his own seat. Then he asked the reason why the Devas had come to Kailash. Bhagwan Sri Shankar asked Sri Brahmaji, what has caused you to come with all the Devas, including Indra, to Kailash? You may certainly tell me everything. Brahmaji said, Mahadeva, This Indra and all the other devas are suffering great difficulties due to Mahishasura. For fear of him, they have left heaven and are living in caves in the mountains. The Danavas have declared enmity with the Devas. At this moment, all sacrificial offerings are being consumed by them. Distraught and dejected, the Devas have come to you for help. Please do whatever you think fit to help them. Sri Mahadeva smiled and said in sweet tones, Brahmaji, it is by your action that this wondrous situation has been created. You granted the boon to Mahishasura. There is nothing more ominous for the Devas. By virtue of this boon, Mahishasura has become invincible and is tormenting the Devas all the time. Does any female exist who can destroy this demon so full of ego and arrogance? Neither my wife nor yours is capable of descending on the battlefield. Even if these most auspicious and fortunate goddesses go to the field, how will they engage in battle? Even Indrani has no knowledge of war tactics. An idea has just come to my mind to go to Bhagwan Vishnu, please him by singing his praises, and then ask him again and again for help. Because he is the knower of the field and exceeding in prowess through his infinite enlightenment, he will give us a solution. Vyasji says, the Devas offered pranams and gratitude and arose to leave for Vaikunth. Sri Shankar also accompanied them. Along the way, they saw many auspicious and favorable portents giving indication of success. Giver of favorable news, the auspicious Vayu spread fragrance all around. Sacred birds flew about singing divine notes. Akash became cloudless and serene. All quarters became pure. All the elements greeted the Devas with a show of good fortune and success. Chapter 5, Episode 8 to 9. On the advice of Sri Vishnu, all the gods combined their energies, from that manifested a most glorious Devi. Vyasji says, all the gods reached Vaikunth. It is the most glorious abode of Vishnu Bhagwan, richly designed and ornamented. A divine lake enhances its beauty. The palace is surrounded by sacred trees bearing fragrant flowers like champa, ashok, kalar, parijat, bakul, malathi, til, mango, and kurbak. Cuckoos are warbling, peacocks are dancing, and bumblebees are humming. And holiness and auspiciousness pervades the atmosphere. Nand, Sunand, and other courtiers are eternal devotees of the Lord Vishnu. They are singing stutis. There are many extensive bhavans. They are decorated with gold and studded with gems. They are so lofty they almost touch the sky. Lord Vishnu's magnificent palace adjoins this. Gandharvas are singing divine music, and the most pleasing kinnars are singing preludes softly and melodiously. Venerable Munis, who are conversant with the Vedas, are reciting hymns and invocations in the praise of the Lord. Two guards, Jai and Vijay, are stationed at the entrance. The Deva spoke to them. May it please one of you to go to Bhagwan Vishnu and inform him that Sri Brahma, Sri Rudra, and other gods have arrived with a desire to come into his presence. Vyasji says, Vijay offered pranams to all the gods and immediately went to Sri Vishnu. He did pranam and said, O suppressor of demons, foremost of all gods, Prabho, at this moment all the gods have arrived at your doorstep. Brahma, Rudra, Indra, Varun, Agni, Yamraj, and all the other devas are eager for your darshan. They are reciting Vedic mantras and singing your praises. Vyasji says, hearing Vijay's words, husband of Rema, Bhagwan Vishnu went out to receive the gods. They met with great joy and warmth. The gods were very tired after their journey and were also upset and distressed. One benevolent glance from Sri Vishnu refreshed and revived them. Then, the killer of demons, as described in the Vedas, Sri Vishnu, offered pranams to the gods and sang their praises. The Devas said, Supreme God of gods, Creator, Preserver, and Destroyer of the universe, O merciful God, we have come to your feet for protection. Bhagwan Vishnu said, all Devas take your seats and tell me your good tidings. What is the reason all of you have come together? Why are you so concerned? Why is there sadness in your faces? In spite of the presence of Brahma and Shankar, you are all so full of fear. Please tell me your problem. The Deva said, the malevolent Mahishasura is causing us a lot of distress. No one can control him. The evil demon is very wicked. After receiving the boon, he has become very conceited and aggressive. All demons are now consuming all the offerings made at yagyas. All of us, devas, have fled heaven and are wandering in the mountains. Madhusudan, the boon received from Sri Brahma, has made him invincible and arrogant. Because the situation is impossible, we have come to you for help. O destroyer of Danavas, Sri Krishna, O protector of the gods, none of the actions of the demons are hidden from you. Therefore, only you can destroy the demons. The boon that Brahmaji gave him is, you cannot be killed by any male of any species. He can be killed by a woman, but which woman is capable and strong enough to enter a battlefield? He was always vile and mean, and after the boon, he has become impertinent and uncontrollable. Out of Bhagavati Parvati, Lakshmi, Shachi, and Sharada, who is it who can succeed in killing this demon? O you who are the support of the universe, it is your nature to be merciful to your devotees. Please find some way in which this troublesome demon can be destroyed. Vyasji says, when the Devas finished speaking, Bhagwan Vishnu's face was full of smiles. He said, a long time ago, I also fought with Mahishasura, but he could not be killed. In the present situation, if all the gods contribute their energy and effulgence, then maybe there will manifest a beautiful and lustrous and capable Devi who can destroy Mahishasura on the battlefield. Mahishasura can conjure hundreds of different illusions, and now, with the addition of a boon, he has become uncontrollably vicious. It is absolutely certain that the Devi who emerges from our combined energies will be the one to destroy him. So now, all of you request your Shaktis, and all the Devis also should pray. As a fruit of our prayers and collective Shaktis, there should emerge a most powerful goddess. Rudra and all the gods should present their weapons like Trishul and others to this goddess. Then, armed with all the divine weapons and filled with the combined Shaktis, she will enter the battlefield and forever destroy that mean and evil Rakshasa. Vyasji says, as Bhagwan Vishnu spoke, there radiated from the body of Sri Brahma a blinding stream of light. Its brilliance was unbearable. It was of red color and sparkled like a ruby. All its rays were beautiful. There was liquid coolness and sultry warmth, and rays of light streamed from it. From the body of Bhagwan Shankar, a tremendous energy took form. It was golden hued, fierce and sharp, and no one could look upon it. For the Daityas, it would be fearsome, but for the Devas, it provided gratification and comfort. Its aspect was terrible, as if a mountain steeped in tamoguna had thundered in. After this, the energy of Sri Vishnu began to take form. It was of blue-black color and had the effulgence of Sattva Guna. From Indra came a supernatural and brilliant light. That energy was now full of the three gunas. Energies of Varun, Kuber, Yamraj and Agni came and merged with this great form. So also, the energies of all the other gods came and combined to form a blazing, blinding mass of light and energy standing there like a second Himachal mountain. As the Devas were gazing at it, this energy manifested as a most beautiful and adorable female form. All the Devas were filled with wonder and astonishment. That was Bhagavati Mahalakshmi. All the three gunas, Sattva, Raja, and Tamo, were present. This Devi, formed out of the combined energies of all the gods, was embellished with 18 arms. She was in three hues. She had a pure and crystal clear face, her eyes were black, her lips were crimson, her palms of her hand were red. She was bedecked with divine ornaments and jewels, and these added luster and splendor to her appearance. She had 18 arms, but in confrontation with Mahishasura, she would bear thousands of arms. Janmejay said, O most fortunate and auspicious Muni Vyasji, you are most knowledgeable. Please describe fully this most splendid and wondrous Devi who manifested from the combined energies of the gods. Did all the energies merge, or did each one become a part of the body of the Devi, like eyes, nose, hair? Please describe how each feature was formed. I have an overwhelming desire to also hear from your auspicious Vani, that is speaking voice, a detailed description of all the weapons and ornaments that each god offered. Brahman, what you have told me so far about the goddess Mahalakshmi is like Amrut, that is nectar. Even if I hear it again and again, my thirst will not be quenched. Sudji says, in response to the king's sincere request, Satyavati Nandan Ved Vyasji started his narration. Vyasji says, Rajan, you are most fortunate and blessed. O foremost of the Kuru clan, from my limited knowledge, I am going to tell you in detail a description of the most divine form of the Devi that manifested on that day. Sri Brahma, Sri Vishnu, Sri Mahesh, and Sri Indra have never been able to adequately describe that Devi, so how can I, a mere mortal, do any justice to the divinity of that great goddess? I can never fully know the different aspects, the accurate and exact appearance, and the causes for her various manifestations. She is beyond description. She is beyond language and vocabulary. All I can say is that the all pervading, the universal, the primordial divine energy, the Bhagavati manifested. Verily, the truth is that the Devi is eternal and omnipresent. It is only to fulfill the desires of the Devas that, in spite of being constant and perpetual, she assumes many forms on many occasions. The Nirgun and Nirakar, for the sake of fulfilling the prayers of the gods, takes attributes and forms and creates a Leela. All the names associated with her different manifestations bear significance to the constituent element of that manifested form. Rajan, I will now humbly try to describe that most pleasing form that manifested from the effulgence, light energy of all the gods. From the radiance of Bhagwan Shankar came her adorable lotus face, white and resplendent like 1,000 suns. The fine, chiseled features were of unparalleled beauty. Her head was crowned with beautiful blue black hair from the lustre of Yamaraj. The hair was long and lustrous, and the upper locks were waved and curly. The hair was as rich and dense as a black cloud. From the fiery radiance of Agni, she took her 3 eyes, which were long and beautiful as those of a dove. Her eyes were tricolored, the streak of red, the natural white, and the black of the collyrium. From the glow of Sandhya came her dark and shapely eyebrows like archways leading to the house of Kamdev. Vayu gave 2 shapely ears with the sun and the moon as earrings. The energy of Kuber formed a nose that had the beauty of a newly blossoming champaka flower, which had a nose ornament that excelled the luster of a star. Prajapati gave sparkling, radiant teeth which resembled jasmine buds of pure knowledge. From Arun, god of dawn, was formed her upper lip, and the lower lip from the glow of Swami Kartik. The dark red color of her lips excelled freshly cut coral in their reflective splendor. From the magnificent stream of light emanating from Sri Vishnu were formed her 18 arms, as soft and cool as a lotus stem. From the luster of the Vasus came fingers and toes, whose nails gave out such a radiance that all the darkness of ignorance is dispelled from those who prostrate at her feet. The silver light of the moon became her divine breast, and from the brilliance of Indra was formed her abdomen, which has 3 folds in the form of a belt to support her waist. From the glory of Varun was formed her thighs and knees, like a crown shaped from a precious red jewel. From Prithvi came the subtle and hidden parts. Her form, below the waist, is the Shakti Kuta, the embodiment of the Moola Mantra. O King, in this way, out of the splendor, glory, and effulgence of all the gods, this most splendid and magnificent Devi manifested. The sweetness of her voice excelled the Veena of Saraswati. Her smile was radiant, and she was a treasure house of beauty. Her forehead shone like the crescent moon, and her eyes possessed the luster of the fish that move about in the stream of beauty flowing from her face. Seeing her, the Devas who were troubled by Mahishasura lost their fear and became joyful. Then Sri Vishnu said to the Devas, "Now all the Devas offer to this Devi all types of ornaments, decorations, and weapons." Vyasji says, all the Devas immediately began to present the Devi with their arms and weapons, ornaments and garments. The milky ocean presented 2 divine garments, as red as the rising sun, which is dyed with an extract from kusumba blossoms, and a gem-studded necklace with a locket made of pearl. Sagar Devata also gave a crown adorned with rows of Kuruvinda gems which shone like a crore of suns, the sun and moon as ear ornaments, and sparkling gem-studded bangles and bracelets. Vishwakarma offered the most exquisitely crafted kadas and armlets made of gold and embedded with precious gems. Twashta presented the most nirmal, the most pure, gem-studded golden anklets with golden bells which tinkle sweetly. Because her feet defeat lotus flowers in radiance. Twashta was very large-hearted. He also offered a necklace and rings for all her fingers made of the most precious gemstones. Varun presented a mala of lotus flowers which would never wilt or wither. The garland is known as Vaijayanti, is most fragrant and had bumblebees buzzing around it. The Lord of the Himalayas was pleased and gave as her vehicle a majestic lion resplendent with jewels, weapons, and rich garments. She was beyond description or comparison because of her unparalleled beauty. Then Sri Vishnu created a chakra out of his own chakra and presented it to the Devi. The glittering chakra had thousands of spokes. It was very efficient in cutting off the heads of the Rakshasas. Sri Shankar produced a powerful trident from his own Trishul and gave it to the Devi. This dispelled the fears of the Devas. Varun took out a conch from his conch. It glistened white and there was a continuous melodious sound coming out of it. He gave this to the Devi. Agni Devata was glowing with joy. He offered to the Devi a formidable, fiery missile. Pavan gave keen arrows in a quiver and a handsome bow which twangled ominously. Indra gave a flashing thunderbolt and a huge bell from the neck of his elephant Airavat. Yama, the god of death, took a rod from the same rod that he uses at the time of annihilation of the world. He offered it to the Devi. Sri Brahma offered a pot filled with holy water of the Ganges. Varun gave a noose. Kal gave a sword and shield. Vishwakarma ground a razor sharp axe and offered it to the Devi. Kuber offered a golden goblet filled with honey. Varun offered a fragrant garland of lotuses. Twashta offered a heavy mace on which tiny bells were attached. It was capable of pulverizing the Rakshasas. He also gave an impenetrable coat of armor, that is Kavach. Surya offered the brilliance of his rays. When the most auspicious Bhagavati, resplendent with all kinds of ornaments, raiments, and weapons, took her seat on her Vahana, the golden lion, all the gods were overwhelmed and started singing stutis in praise of her. The Devatas said, "We offer everlasting worship to Bhagavati Jagadamba, who is verily Shiva, Kalyani, Shanti, Pushti, and Rudrani. She is also known as Kalaratri, Indrani, Siddhi, Buddhi, Vriddhi, and Vaishnavi. To that Bhagavati Amba, our humble pranams. We worship that Bhagavati Parameshwari who abides in the earth, but the earth does not know her. She presides over Prithvi and works out the entire creation. Obeisance to that auspicious, unborn Bhagavati who exists in Maya but is untouched by it, and who exists within the causal as its impetus. O Mother, we are constantly being troubled by the enemy. Please protect us. Only a woman can kill that wicked, proud, and evil Danava. He has the power to assume various frightful forms. O compassionate Devi, you are our only refuge and hope." Vyasji says, the Devi was pleased with the worship of the Devas and a smile radiated from her beautiful face and eyes. She gave an assurance to the Devas. The Devi said, Devas, now do not be afraid any longer. Very soon I will kill this evil Mahishasura in battle. Vyasji says, after saying this, the Devi laughed loudly and in an awesome manner. She said, what a strange world this is, enmeshed in hallucination and spiritual ignorance. Today, all the Devas are in great fear of Mahishasura and their hearts are heaving. Respectable Devas, fate is terrible and formidable and can never be subdued because it has been given total power over time and action. Both happiness and sorrow come under the command of fate or destiny. She laughed with a roaring sound which put fear into the Danavas. The earth trembled and the mountains shook. Tidal waves rose like walls in the ocean. Mount Sumeru shifted from its place. Whistling and howling sounds came from all directions. This sound, which put fear into the Danavas, was the cause of joy to the Devas. They began to sing, Devi, victory to you. Please protect us. Mahishasura, who was intoxicated with pride and arrogance in heaven, also heard this awesome sound and became furious. He commanded the Danavas to send a spy to find out the source of that sound which was splitting the eardrums. He said, whoever is making that outrageous noise must be very wicked and arrogant. Whether he is a Deva or a Danava, bring him to me and I will send him into the jaws of death. His days are numbered and I will hasten his journey to the house of Yama. Let the spy come and tell me where this person is and I will go and kill him. Vyasji says, the spies followed the sound and arrived in the presence of the Devi. They saw that she was indescribably beautiful. She had 18 arms and was adorned with ornaments and weapons. She was holding a cup of honey which she was drinking. The Danava spies were filled with awe and began to shake with fear. They ran back to Mahishasura and reported, O Lord of Danavas, an extremely beautiful woman has appeared. She is in the bloom of youth. This Devi is decorated with dazzling raiments and ornaments. She is neither human nor demon. She has 18 arms in which she is carrying all description of weapons, and she is seated on a majestic lion. She is constantly sipping honey from a cup. It appears that she is not married. All the Devas have assembled in the sky and are singing, O Devi, victory to you. Please protect us and destroy our enemies. Master, we were not able to find out who she is, from where she has come, whom she is married to, and what is the purpose of her coming. There is so much light radiating from her that we could not bear to look upon her. She appears dressed for war and presents a fearful sight. Mahishasura spoke to his minister. You are my prime minister. Take an army and go to this place. Use gentle words and lavish gifts to impress this Devi and bring her to me. If she does not accept, then you may discipline and chastise her, but do not bruise or injure her. Bring her carefully, as I wish to make her my queen. Just hearing about her has fascinated me. Vyasji says, the minister left with elephants, horses, chariots and soldiers. He found he could not approach her. From far off he began to address her in sweet tones. O fortunate one, my master is unbeatable and invincible. Even the gods cannot cause his death, much less human beings. He makes gentle inquiries about who you are, where you have come from, and what is your desire. O beautiful eyed one, my lord has been given a boon by Brahmaji, and he is very proud of it. All the Danavas accept his overlordship. He is powerful and can change his form at will. His name is Mahishasura. When he heard of your glorious beauty, he decided to come here himself. But I appeal to you to accompany me to his palace. Please tell me what is your pleasure, and we will act accordingly. Chapter 5, Episodes 10 to 11. Devi speaks to the minister. Minister carries message to Mahishasura. He sends Tamra. Vyasji says, Rajan, the form that the Devi had taken was grand and supreme. After the minister spoke, she smiled and spoke in a voice like thunder. The Devi said, Minister, from my present form, you should understand that I am the mother of the gods. My name is Mahalakshmi. I have manifested for the destruction of all the Danavas. The Devas had prayed to me to kill Mahishasura. He has been tormenting them. Even now, they are not getting their rightful share of the yagyas. That is why I have come here today. I am in the process of destroying him. I am not alone. I have an extensive army. O guiltless one, you have shown respect to me and spoke to me in gentle and welcoming tones. I am pleased with you. Otherwise, my glance is equal to the final dissolution of the universe. Under its effect, your life will end. Now listen to me carefully. Go to that sinful demon Mahishasura and convey this message of mine. If you value your life, go immediately to Patal. If you do not go, then I will finish your wicked life on the battlefield. Your body will be torn to shreds by my arrows. You will have to go to Yamraja's house. Take advantage of my mercy and leave heaven immediately. Otherwise, after you are killed, the Devas will re enter heaven. It is better for you to give up this earth from ocean to ocean and go to Patal before you become the target for my arrows. If you desire war, then come with all your strength. I am impatient to send you to Yama. O foolish one, in every yuga I have killed countless demons and danavas. In the same way, you will become the victim of all my weapons. You have become full of arrogance after receiving the boon from Sri Brahma. Being aware that no male can kill you, you have tortured the great gods. Therefore, it is imperative that Brahma's boon should be actualized. And that is the reason I have assumed this formidable female form and come to end your wicked and sinful life. If you wish to live, then leave heaven and go to Patal where serpents rule. Vyasji says, the minister replied, Devi, you are speaking like an ambitious and arrogant lady. How can you compare yourself with the valiant and brave Mahishasura? Such a war is improper. You are on the threshold of youth. All your limbs are soft and tender. Mahishasura's body is strong and tough. Also, he owns thousands of elephants, horses and chariots, and countless soldiers. He will crush you like an elephant crushes malati flowers. Our master is the greatest enemy of the Devas, but he has high regard for you. That is why I approached you with gifts and gentle speech. Otherwise, for the pride and disrespect you are showing, I should have killed you with my arrows. When my master heard that your beauty pales everything in this world, to insignificance, he became fascinated. O you with beautiful eyes, you will reign over his kingdom and his heart. He will be your servant. Give up this fatal anger and create feelings of affection. I prostrate at your feet and entreat you to become his queen. You will preside over the three worlds and all happiness will be yours. Devi said, O minister, according to the Maryadas of the Shastras and from wisdom, I am going to tell you the essence of my worlds. Listen carefully. I have understood that you are the Prime Minister of Mahishasura. From your language, it is evident that you also possess animal intelligence. If you are the minister, then what wisdom can one expect from your master? Both of you are the same. Brahma has matched you well. Foolish one, you have said you have womanly qualities. Think again and look. Do I not have manly qualities as well? From my natural disposition, I have chosen to assume a female form. Your master opted for death by a woman's hand, and therefore I have manifested as a woman. This choice of his proves that he is a great fool and completely ignorant. He is totally devoid of the qualities of bravery and courage. Dying at the hands of a woman may be acceptable to a coward, but for a valiant warrior, it is the biggest disgrace and dishonor. This is the despicable death your lord and master has asked for. It is to fulfill this boon that I have taken this female form and come to this place. All that you have said contradicts and opposes the Holy Writ. How can it frighten me? When fate turns unfavorable, even a blade of grass assumes the overpowering strength and keenness of a sword. For someone whose journey into the jaws of death has already begun, what use can be served by amazing armies, weapons, and building fortresses? On the other hand, when fate is favorable, even a sharp sword becomes as soft and harmless as cotton. The moment a soul gets connection to a body, that very moment his joys, sorrows, and death are written. Whatever fate decides about the kind of death a person will die, that is the way he will die. This is irreversible and inevitable. There should be no doubt about this. This rule even governs the gods, including Brahma, Vishnu, and Mahesh. Then what about the others? If a mortal begins to think, I can never die, then he is a fool of the highest order. His intelligence is dead. Therefore, you go back to your Lord and give him my message. Then you may act according to his orders. If you value your lives, give heaven back to Indra. Let the gods have their share of the yagyas, and all of you go to Rasatal, the sixth lowest world according to the Puranas, hell. It is possible that in his foolish arrogance, Mahishasura will not agree to this. Then, of course, you can all fight with me. You may be rejoicing in the fact that all the great gods were defeated by you. But this belief is baseless because, as destined, Brahmaji had given such a boon that they would face defeat. Vyasji says, hearing Bhagavati Jagadamba's words, the minister began to ponder within. Now what shall I do? Should I start fighting now or return to my master? He is agitated with fanciful thoughts of marrying this Devi. How can I go back empty handed? But it would be wise to go and tell him everything and convince him to come here himself. It is not advisable for me to enter into battle with this Devi, because whether I die or I kill her, my master's purpose will not be served. So, the minister decided to go back to Mahishasura carrying the Devi's message. The minister said, O king, The Devi who is seated on the lion is truly very beautiful. She has 18 hands and in each she carries a weapon. She presents an awesome and majestic sight. I told her in very gentle tones to accept you as her lord and that she would reign over the three worlds as queen. At first, she appeared perplexed. Then she laughed very loudly and said, this Mahishasura who has taken birth from a buffalo is lower than an animal. For the benevolence of the gods, I will sacrifice him to the Devi. O foolish one, in this whole world is there one idiotic woman who will wish to make a buffalo her husband? Then how can a wise and intelligent woman like me even entertain such a thought? Only a she buffalo with horns should marry a buffalo like him. I cannot bellow like a buffalo and accept him as a husband, but I will meet him on the battlefield. This Mahishasura, who is troubling the gods, will meet his death at my hands. If you wish to live, run away to Patal. O king, she has spoken harsh and severe words to me. I did not wish to spoil your plans, so I did not fight with her. Without your orders, I could not take any decision, whether to fight or to run away. Vyasji says, Mahishasura immediately summoned his elder ministers and said, Ministers, please let me have your views in this matter. Could this be the same Maya that trapped Shambharasura? You are wise and can find solutions. Whom should we appease with praises and gifts so that we get support? The minister said, O king, it is necessary to always speak what is truth as well as pleasing. But many times the truth is not pleasing even though it is benevolent. It is like an unpleasant medicine which is ultimately benevolent because it relieves illness. It is very rare to find someone who speaks the absolute truth. In the present situation, what can one say? It is impossible to know beforehand which action will succeed and which will fail. Mahishasura said, let each one speak their mind, then I will take the decision. It is wise to consider the views of all present. Vyasji says, hearing this, Mahabali Virupaksh spoke, hoping to impress the king. Virupaksh said, O king, this is an ordinary woman. In ego, she is saying things to frighten us. It is the practice of women to exaggerate so that no one will defeat them. But the man who recognizes this untruth and false courage will not fear her. It is shameful for a man to be in fear of a woman. Of course, it is reproachable for a man to kill a woman who is forlorn and pitiable. I will go alone and kill this Devi, so have no fear. I will go armed with weapons and conquer this proud and arrogant woman. I will bind her with serpentine ropes and bring her to you. Vyasji says, Demon Durdarsh supported Virupaksh. He said, Rajan, Virupaksh is right. Please also hear me. It seems this Devi is smitten by the arrow of Kamadev. Women usually behave like this and try to control their master. All her threats are actually overtunes. A man who is well versed in the art of love can recognize these symptoms. When she says she will pierce you with arrows, it actually means glances. A woman's weapon is her glance. So if you go there, you will fall prey to her charms. Allow me to go with gifts, and I will subdue her and bring her to you as your slave. Vyasji says, hearing these two Danavas, a third one, Tamra said, Rajan, please give me also a hearing. There is a lot of truth and substance in what I am going to say. This Devi appears to be very intelligent. She has not come here under the influence of Kamdev's arrows. All that she has spoken should not be misconstrued as coy signals. She has come alone and unattended. This is amazing. She is adorned with 18 arms. No one in the three worlds has ever seen a Devi with 18 arms. In every arm, she is carrying a weapon of destruction. To me, it seems to be the play of fate. Some unfavorable event is about to happen. I also had an ominous dream last night. From this, I fear that Yama is setting up camp here. It was after midnight that I saw in my dream a woman dressed in a black sari, wailing and lamenting. This message of death should be considered seriously. Events have already started taking shape. This Devi has appeared and is calling you to battle. Rajan, she is neither a human, nor a Gandharvi, nor an Asuri. She has been created by the Maya of the gods. It is her quality to charm and deceive. In the circumstances, it is not advisable to be cowardly and refuse to fight. We must go to war with her. Whatever has to happen will definitely happen. We cannot know whether the fruit of fate will be success or failure. A prudent man should maintain his balance and remain confident. Rajan, life and death is totally under the control of destiny. There is no one in these three worlds who can defeat it. Mahishasura said, Tamra, make preparations and go. Defeat that Devi and bring her to me. If she resists, do not kill her. Try some other means to get her under your control. Observe her and find out what is the real purpose of her visit. Vyasji says, Tamra's head had just become the seat for death. He took his army and left. On the way, he saw many omens of death and his mind was filled with fear. Then he saw the Devi. She was enthroned on the lion and the Devas were singing stutis. Tamra assumed a humble stance and went before the Devi and said, My lord Mahishasura, who bears beautiful horns on his head, is very impressed with your beauty and your qualities. He is also the overlord of the Devas. Do not lose this opportunity. Accept him as your lord, and he will lay at your feet all the happiness of the three worlds. Why should you burden these delicate arms with weapons? You should be garlanding them with flowers. When your glances are so powerful, why do you need arrows? War is the cause of all sorrows in this world. Why should one expose the body to be pierced with weapons? Therefore, Devi, form an alliance with my lord. Even the Devas and Danavas respect and fear him. He will elevate you to the position of his queen and shower all kinds of favors on you. Your children will rule the three worlds, so you can ensure happiness not only in your youth but also in your old age. Chapter 5, Episodes 12-13. Tamra runs back. Mahishasura sends Vashkal and Durmukh, who are killed. Vyasji says, Hearing Tamra's words, the Devi smiled. She replied to him in thunderous tones. The Devi said, Tamra, your stupid master is now embracing death. Kamdev has succeeded in putting his arrows into him. Go and tell him that I am not like the buffalo who gave him birth, who eats grass and gets fat, who has a long tail, big belly, and horns on the head. I have no desire to even make Brahma, Vishnu, Mahesh, Indra, Varun, Kuber, and Agni as my husband. What quality can ever make me accept an animal as a husband? I am not a woman who chooses her husband. My husband is eternal and forever present. He is the doer, the witness, the non doer, desireless, and his form is attributeless, unselfish, eternal, unsupported, and has no basis, as he is the base of everything, all knowing, all powerful, entire, and auspicious. He is the embodiment of peace and forgiveness. He is omniscient and without any illusion, such as mistaking the unreal for real. Can I leave such a perfect husband for Mahishasura? You better be careful how you fight. I will make you a vehicle for Yama, or I will give you a burden of transporting water to the people of the three worlds. O mean and low one, if you value your life, better take all the Danavas and go to Patal. Otherwise, you cannot escape death on the battlefield. It is only when two people have equal qualities that they can live happily in this world. Otherwise, if a foolish person has ambitions of a disproportional alliance, he will have to suffer sorrows. Your head is filled with stones. So, you are asking me to accept your lot. Can you not see who I am and who that horned animal is? Either you go away or fight. You may do as you wish. I will certainly kill you. Vyasji says. Saying this, the Devi made dangerous sounds. It was such a loud sound that the earth trembled, the mountains shook, and the wives of the demons went into labor. Tamra was terrified and ran back to Mahishasura. The whole Daitya kingdom became fearful. The sound was so deafening. Even the golden lion began to roar. The Bhairavnath, that is the sound of doom, caused every nerve to bristle with fear. Seeing the return of Tamra, Mahishasura got dazed. He discussed with his ministers. Should we hide in the fortress? Should we fight? Or should we run away? In matters of state, a king always consults his ministers. If the advice of the ministers is not taken, the king and kingdom go into destruction. Therefore, you should now give your advice for the benefit of the country. Why has this Devi come here alone and unsupported? And why is she constantly calling us to battle? No doubt it is impossible to know beforehand the outcome of a war. Those who favor action say there is no such thing as fate and destiny because no one has ever seen it. Only cowards take refuge in leaving everything to fate. So, ponder over these two lines of thought and give me your decision. Vyasji says, the demon Vidalaksh said, Lord, we must again find out under whose orders this Devi has come and from where, whom she is married to. You can only be killed by a woman. The Devas are aware of this. It is they who have combined their energies into this Devi and sent her here. All of them are hiding in the skies in anticipation of watching a war. When the occasion arises, they will all come to her aid. From Vishnu onwards, they will make her the chief and kill all of us. And then she will kill you. Maharaj, this is my understanding of the situation. I cannot foresee the result of the war. My advice is that we should not fight. I cannot say more than this. You are, of course, our master. We will die for you. It is our duty. But the most amazing and puzzling thing is that despite being alone and unsupported, she is calling for war. Durmukh said, King, I am convinced that we will be victorious. I will destroy this Maya filled Devi that the Devas have created. Do not fear. As for the minister's advice, I have this to say. There are three kinds of ministers. Those who are sattvic always put the master's interest first and never oppose his orders. They are faithful and obedient. Then there are the Rajasic ministers who are always weighing situations and expressing diverse views. They only do what they want, even if it jeopardizes the master. Sometimes they even form alliance with the enemy and divulge secret information. They are ambitious and sly and give harmful advice to their master. The Tamasic ministers are even lower and baser. They are always steeped in sinful acts. Trust me and have no fear. I will go and face this Devi. Vyasji says, Vashkal and Durmukh left on their quest. They were full of pride and self-confidence. When they reached, they saw the Devi sitting on a lion. They spoke in a loud voice, Devi, our king has vanquished the gods. He is the lord of the three worlds. He will come to meet you in the form of a handsome man, well dressed and well decorated. Other women are dying out of desire for him. If you marry him, you will be most fortunate. Sri Devi said, O wicked creatures, do you think I am some ordinary female ensnared in the chains of lust and fascination, and that I will marry Mahishasura? Women who belong to respectable lineage, who are virtuous and chaste, will look for the same qualities in a husband. In fact, he should be superior to her in appearance, intelligence, character, and nature. This Mahishasura is always in the form of an animal, and even among animals, his breed is considered inferior. Then which woman will accept him as a husband? You Vashkal and you Durmukh, go back immediately to that lord of yours who keeps wallowing in dust like an elephant. Go and tell him, you go to Patal or else come and fight with me. It is only a war which will restore Indra's confidence. This is the truth. I will go away only after killing you. I cannot leave before that. O intolerable fool, ponder over my words and do whatever you desire. You four-footed animal, before my victory, there is no place on earth, no cave in the mountains, and nowhere in the sky that you can hide. Vyasji says, when the Devi said this, the two Danavas, Vashkal and Durmukh, became furious and red-eyed with arrogance. They began shooting arrows at the Devi. The Devi had to fulfill the Deva's prayers. She sent back a hail of arrows. Vashkal faced the Devi first, and a terrible fight started with arrows, swords, and spears. The Devi used her crescent arrow and broke his bow into pieces. He came jumping with a mace. The Devi also used a mace and dropped him to the ground. He rose again and charged. The Devi became angry, and with her trishul, she wounded him mortally in the chest. Vashkal fell down dead. Durmukh appeared on the scene. He wore armor and was in a chariot. Devi sounded the conch and twangled her bowstring. There ensued a fierce fight. Rivers of blood flowed, and with it, the heads of warriors looked like the guards which Yama's messengers use when they learn swimming. The battlefield presented a horrific sight. Bodies were strewn all over, and scavenging birds and animals were closing in. The smell of death was in the air. Seeing all this, Durmukh lost his wits. He again suggested to the Devi that she should drink wine, surrender the war, and accept the proposal of Mahishasura. Devi Bhagavati said, "Death is dancing on your head. You are blinded by fate. Enjoy all your meaningless talk. I will directly send you to the house of Yama, as I have just sent Vashkal. Then I will make preparations to kill Mahishasura." Durmukh had come to meet his death. He began to fight again. The Devi used 5 arrows and shot his chariot to splinters. He picked up his mace and ran towards the Devi. He hit the lion on the head. The lion stood firm. The Devi took her sword and cut Durmukh's head off from his body. The Devas began to shout Jai Jaikars and then bowed their heads and sang stutis. They showered flowers from the heavens. The Rishis, Gandharvas, Kinnaras, and other saints rejoiced with the Devas. The holy recital of Srimad Devi Bhagavat. Jai Shrimati Ji.